unlike most years when I come up, I got a whole lot of things to clear up before we get started. I would actually hand glide before I ever got a tattoo, and I'm not hand gliding. So I literally don't think I've ever been in a verbal altercation with an OSU coach. Can you remember one, Chris? I went down the list of all the coaches. I mean, certainly not Eddie or Sean or Travis Ford or Underwood. So not in basketball. I'm smart enough not to say anything to John Smith. Gary Ward, Gary just talked and you just sit there and listen. There wasn't any reason to interrupt him or holiday or so. I really don't think I've ever been in. Of course, I don't even know if I've been in an altercation with an OU coach. Most of my altercations are Thunder related. So, and last, yes, I have become one of those crazy people that spend their summers getting sunburned at softball games. I got a 12-year-old granddaughter that she didn't take up softball till 10. She just this year started playing travel ball, but now I got 2 scorebooks filled up with Tribute and Alcott Middle School softball. So if somebody asks me my favorite team, I say that's who it is. That's in fact, I got a game at 4:45. We're playing the Oklahoma City Broncos. I don't even know who that is, but I'm going to find out at 4:45. But I appreciate you guys having me up. This is a little strange. Usually I'm up a week or 2 before the first game. This year we got a game under our belt already, so we know a little bit more about this ball team that's playing on Saturday. Of course, watching them doesn't always help people like me. I watched them play. I watched the Cowboys play the first 3 games last year, and I thought, man, it's a pretty fortunate team to be 3-0. I think they're going to, after they beat Boise, me and Chris had dinner in Boise last year before the game. And we came away after the game thinking, you know what? Cowboys might make a bowl now. They might make a bowl. Yeah, they made a bowl. They made the Fiesta Bowl and beat Notre Dame. So you never know. You never know. But it certainly looks great with where the program is. And this team in particular, Spencer Sanders looks like a star. You know, I do radio with Traber now, and I don't really know what I'm doing in radio, and I don't really follow the business. I just get on there and talk. But Traber's eat up with the business and all that. And there's a station, the Norman All Sports station. They rebranded themselves as it's the Ref, and it's they call themselves the radio station for OU fans or something like that. And they've even got on a signal in Oklahoma City. And one of their guys over the summer listed the Big 12 quarterbacks in order of how good they are. And he started at 1 and started with, I assume, Dylan Gabriel. I don't really remember. He kept going down the list, and I kept thinking, you seem to be forgetting somebody. He got all the way to 6th before he got to Spencer Sanders. And I remember thinking, you know what? If there's 5 better quarterbacks in the nation better than Spencer Sanders, I'm going to be surprised. And after watching him the other day, I don't think there are. I think the Cowboys are in great shape. In fact, Pat Forty, who writes for Sports Illustrated, does a great podcast, a college football podcast. He made Spencer one of his top 3 Heisman contenders after week 1. So he's in line for a great year, and he looks like this is 2 straight games where he's just played unbelievable. I don't know if you saw the stat. If you start with the last minute 15 of the Fiesta Bowl and go through the first half and the first possession of the game the other night against Central Michigan, it's 62 game minutes. And in that 62 minutes of football, Spencer Sanders is rushed for 150-something yards, and he completed 46 of 62 passes for 615 yards. So, I mean, that's like Mike Leach meets video game numbers. So it's looking good for the Cowboys. Now they got a whole lot of new guys on defense. So there's going to be some, it's a little bit of a throwback back to, when Cowboys had trouble stopping people. So you're going to have to live with some of that, but it looks to me like the offense is really going to be good. So how far can they go? I don't know. We'll see. It'll be fun. Arizona State's coming Saturday night. For all I know, they'll be back soon as a member of the Big 12. That's the way the world works these days. But it's certainly looking good. Gundy's awfully confident about the future of the Big 12. And a year ago when we talked, it was a little sketchy. Financially, it was unsure. Truthfully, it's still a little bit unsure because we don't know what the media rights are going to be. But certainly things look a lot better than they did. And just a little bit of leadership and stability went a long way to making sure everything's going to stay good. So the future's bright for OSU athletics. If I actually would have known Kenny was going to be here, I might have just got about to Edmond and called Chris and said, you know what? I got a lot to do, Chris. I'm going to turn around, go home, just have Kenny talk, and it's going to be way more popular. It's this way in Norman, and it seems to be this way in Stillwater. Softball's become the second most popular sport on campus. I mean, everybody loves Mike Boynton. Everybody in Norman loves Porter Moser, but like with the Oklahoman website, if we're not writing about football, we better be writing about softball if we want to get people to click on our stuff. That's true. That's OU and OSU. It's not basketball. Second most popular sport among the people who read our website, softball. Now, if Kenny goes and misses the super regional next year, maybe that changes. If Patty doesn't win the national title, man, everybody, it's an all a roller coaster. But softball's riding high. So it's great. I was up here for the Clemson Super Regional. That's right. Yeah, Clemson Super Regional. The atmosphere was unbelievable. It was fantastic. I could use a new stadium though, because I don't have a fear of heights, but I have a fear of falling. So I was sitting at the top on the outside on the whatever, I think it'd be the north side the north side of the press box. And I figured out pretty early before the first pitch that that's a place I could fall to my death. So I just leaned against the wall of the press box and watched the game. But it was a great atmosphere. Everybody had a great time. Cowgirls were great. Just an unbelievable job. So the future's bright, and OSU athletics stronger than ever. I spoke at a journalism class yesterday, and I gave him one of my standard lines, which is, and I've told you guys this, I'm the luckiest guy in the world with the job I've got. But even with that, I'm lucky because there's never been a better time to be doing my job than right now. Because not only is OU great and a lot of stuff, not only is OSU great and a lot of stuff, we got the NBA. So if you got the itch to be in a pro market, I didn't have to leave and go to the pro market. The pro market came to me. So I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And the success of OSU athletics, symbolized by football and its establishment as one of the best programs in America, is a big part of that. So I'm the luckiest guy in the world. So always enjoy coming up here. And the more I come, the less I need to just talk. And the more I need to just take questions. Because you guys, I don't really understand. When you said you couldn't find any dirt on me or figure out anything about me, I'm the most, what's the word? Transparent. I'm the most transparent guy in the history of the world.
You must just not do anything very interesting.
Well, that could be. That could be. I stay off police blotters. I do that. That's true.
And out of tattoo parlors, I found out.
And I tell people, I trotted this line out. I spoke, I don't know if I told you, 2 or 3 years ago, Jane Giroux, the old sports newscaster for Channel 5. She's Miss America from Laverne up near Woodward. She has this program in Oklahoma City. It's the Esther Women's Series, in which she invites women for a big banquet. She has a speaker come in, motivational type speaker. For some reason, she had me come and speak. is the most intimidated I've ever been. Literally at St. Luke's United Methodist Church, their banquet hall, there were 450 women. The only two men in the whole building were me and the guy running a camera for St. Luke's. So I was intimidated, but I got him over to my side pretty quickly by telling him, you can pretty much tell what's going on with my life. My life doesn't change much. For the last 40 years, I've had 2 jobs. I've gone to 2 churches. I've lived in 2 houses. I've driven 4 trucks, and I've had 1 wife. So that's my life. So there's no question about what's going on with me. So enough about me. Let's talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I'll answer any questions you want to address.
Questions?
Yes, sir. College football playoff. I got to tell you, sometimes your football coach can get goofy. Did you hear what he said Monday? He said, that's not that big a deal. I'm not sure it's that. He didn't really endorse it. It's one of the best things that ever happened to a conference like the Big 12 or a school like OSU. Think about what a closed society that's been. Same 4 or 5 or 6 schools playing all the playoffs. All of a sudden, we're opening it up. It's a little bit like going from feudal England to the U.S. Constitution. It's that big of a change. The access, if you didn't hear, the college football playoffs going from 4 to 12 teams, probably in 24, but at least by 26. It's a wonderful thing. Conferences like the Pac-12 and the Big 12, they can now recruit to that. They can tell players truthfully, hey, somebody's going to the playoffs from this. We got access to the playoffs. Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, they've been getting all the playoff berths. So it's a wonderful thing. By October 1st this year, we will be down to about 25 teams still in the running for a college football playoff berth. By November 1st, we'll be down to about 10. And by Thanksgiving, we'll be down to about 6. You go to 12, those numbers just skyrocket. On November 1st, there'll be 40 teams still in the running for a playoff berth. On November 15th, be 25 still available. It's a great, great thing. It's a wonderful thing. With 12, 4 teams get a bye. The top 4, the committee's going to rank teams. The top 4 seeds, if they're the conference champions, the top 4 conference champions get a bye. Then the 5 through 12 are placed on the bracket. 5 plays 12, 6 plays 11, 7, 10, 8, 9. And the cool thing is that round is a home game. So like last year, OSU going into the playoff was 9th. So OSU would have played Mississippi. Ole Miss was 8th. That game would have been in Oxford, Mississippi. What's cool about that, reverse those a little. If OSU's an 8th seed, Stillwater's hosting the playoff game. Maybe it's an Ole Miss, could be a Florida, could be a USC, could be any. I mean, that's going to be a cool day, the day OSU hosts a playoff game in Stillwater. That's going to be probably the biggest sporting event in OSU history, hosting a college football playoff game right here at Boone Pickens. So it's a great thing. Then the quarterfinals and semifinals go to bowl games, the 6 big bowls. Then they play a championship game. The problem is we're going to go into pretty late January to determine the champion. They used to worry about stuff like that, length of the season and health of the players and academics and all that. Nobody really worries about that anymore. When the Alabama quarterback signs a NIL deal for $1 million, you don't really worry about if he's playing too many football games. Suck it up and play. That's the message. And the academics, I'm not speaking for I'm not sure about softball players, but on the football level, most of those guys don't go to class, don't you? I'm serious. It's all virtual. It's all digital. OU, for the previous 2 years, practiced at 9 a.m. every day. And Gundy told me Monday he's thinking about doing it. You can practice from 9 to noon. Nobody's in class. Everybody's taking their classes. online. So all the impediments to the lengthening the season and changing the calendar, those are gone. It's professional football, just not as high of a level as the NFL. So that's where we're at. NIL.
The colleges at the OSU level, and I'm dyed in the wool orange, but I just see OU, Texas, Alabama, all those guys that were working to limit their scholarships or make it a more level playing surface. They've got all the advantages in the world, and now they've made it legal.
Yes, it is a problem. Now, my response when somebody says this is only going to help Alabama, my response is everything always helps Alabama. There's nothing you can do to stop the Alabama machine. I do think a couple things. Gary Patterson at TCU, before he got kicked out, he thought the NIL was going to be great because he thought it would help a school like TCU. He said we can get some money together and we can make it happen. I also think this. I think the NIL has a chance to end the arms race. If you don't know it, people are spending crazy money on facilities. OU's football complex is about 5 or 6 years old from its current, everybody always builds on stuff, but it's 5 or 6 years old. They're about ready to build a new one. $180 million. I don't think they have the money yet, but that's what they want to do. I ran into Switzer at dinner Tuesday night, and we got to talking about the NIL. And he said, I thought we were in debt. What are we doing spending $180 million on all this stuff? I said, you know what? Tell Brent, if they got $180 million, I'd go spend it on defensive tackles. I'm serious. The brick and mortar age might be over. If Kenny's got a bunch of money laying around, maybe he goes, spends it on a pitcher to replace Kelly Maxwell when she's finished. Because that's where the future is. The money's going to the player. Guess what they never talk about in the NFL? You ever hear people talk about facilities? Players ever go sign with the Seahawks or the Bears because they got good training headquarters? No, that's not the way it sounds crass, but that's the way it's going to go. That's where it's going, and we don't happen to like it. I happen to not like it, but guess what? That's where it's going.
When do you think OU and Texas will depart the Big 12?
I think they will. I think there's a chance they'll go in 24 because I think, and that'd be the last season. They're going to either 24 or 25, but I think ESPN might get involved and write them a check. Well, because of the Big Ten, Fox and ESPN are running everything, and they're in a, excuse my French, they're in a pissing contest. And ESPN had the jump on everybody, expanding. Well, now the Big Ten got USC, UCLA, same thing. And they got a year early. They're going to start in 24. I don't think ESPN wants Fox to start that year, and then ESPN comes a year later. So I think they might cut the Big 12 a check and get them out a year early. Who does ESPN save money? Well, yeah, although it was going to run out and it was just going to die on the vine whenever it ends. But yeah, the Longhorn Network has been a boondoggle for ESPN. They're ready to get out of that. But the same with Texas. Texas is the same as the Big 12. Texas has no incentive to let ESPN out of that contract. And the Big 12 has no reason to let OU and Texas walk off without writing an $80 million check each. So, but I do think it might be worth it for ESPN to let them out a year early. I keep thinking of cool things the Big 12 could do to screw with OU and Texas, and they still might do it. I've told them in fact, I wrote about it. If I was running the Big 12, you know what I might do with the Big 12 schedule next year? Not schedule OU and Texas to play each other. Conference schedule comes out. Texas playing 9 schools. OU's playing 9 schools. They're not on each other's schedule. Because do whatever you want to. Now, what would OU and Texas do? Well, they'd scramble around and schedule each other in a non-conference game. But that's just better inventory for the Big 12. So there's things they could do with them. You know, and when you make out the schedule, Brigham Young, figure out who's the good teams. Brigham Young, Central Florida, Cincinnati. I don't know who's going to be good next year, but whoever it is, they could load up the schedule. You know, the schedule's automatic now. Starting next year, it's not automatic. You can do about whatever you want to. So that'll be something to keep an eye on is when the schedule comes out, the 2023 Big 12 football schedule. That'll be a lot of fun. Yes, sir.
If we do expand to 16, who do you think those 4 are most likely to be?
Most likely the 4 corner, what everybody's taking: Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado. Now, you got a wish list, and you start with Oregon and Washington because that's the marquees. And if I could get Oregon and Washington, and Utah, then who cares who the 4th one is? I actually like Boise awfully a lot. If I'm running a TV network, I look at Boise State this way. When I'm flipping channels at 11:30 at night on a Saturday, getting home from football, and I see Arizona playing football, it doesn't make me stop. If I see Colorado, it doesn't make me stop. I get to Boise State and that blue field, I stop. I watch them. So to me, Boise State's got a little bit of a draw, but I think it's Oregon and Washington at the top of the list. You know, I don't know what you guys think of the new commissioner, Brett Yormark. Gundy loves him, and I think Casey Shrum likes him. She's not as exuberant as Gundy, most things. But Yormark was in Cincinnati yesterday, and he said he's not backing down from this going public saying, we're recruiting. And he even said, we're looking west, and he narrowed it down yesterday. He said, we're looking at the Pacific time zone. Now, that's not Colorado, and that's not Utah. Depends on how you look at it. It could be Arizona and Arizona State, because Arizona, if you don't know, is one of those states that's half and half. In the summer, they're Pacific time. In the winter, they're mountain time. But I think he really means they want Oregon and Washington. Of course, Oregon and Washington want to go to the Big Ten yesterday, not tomorrow. They want to go yesterday. Does the Big Ten want them? Nobody knows. So that's really the key. But that's what they want to get 4 more schools, and that would help give some balance to the conference. You know, BYU wouldn't be out there by themselves. We got Cincinnati, we got West Virginia, a couple of Eastern time zone partners now. So get Brigham Young 4, and it'd be a sort of a cool conference.
Do you think ESPN will pay up to keep the OU OSU game as a non-conference game?
I don't know. I don't think that's a network decision. I think that's an administrative decision by the 2 schools. Because here's the deal. I love Joe Castiglione. I love Chad Weiberg. But they are fallen victim, or they haven't yet, but they very easily could fall victim to this disease that afflicts all administrators, which they don't look out for what's best for college football. Anybody watch? Well, no, you were all at the game. I didn't watch it either. West Virginia Pitt the other night. I say I didn't watch it. I actually had it on my iPad in the press box, so I did watch it. Unbelievable rivals, hate each other. Pittsburgh and West Virginia, the campuses are like 75 miles apart. Unbelievable historic rivalry. Call it the backyard brawl. Pitt left for the ACC in 2012, I think it was. West Virginia came to the Big 12. They quit playing. They haven't played in 11 years. Texas A&M and Texas quit playing. Brigham Young and Utah quit playing. I promise you, you can walk into any business, any government office, any school, any place in the state of Utah that has more than 10 people, and it's a rivalry for who gets the payday and who gets the Snickers, and it's all based on BYU and Utah. It's an unbelievable rivalry. It's bedlam, only the geographics are a lot more mixed because Provo and Salt Lake are so close. And of course, there's, the state's 50% Mormon. And so, like, you go to the State House and it's 50-50 Brigham Young and Utah. They've stopped playing every year. What gets into people's minds? I don't understand it. And here's the truth. It's probably going to die, and Bedlam's probably going to die. Well, here's the deal. It's going to be based on just non-conference. It's not going to be the TV contract is so huge. It's not predicated on any one game. The SEC deal, I mean, what is it? $6 billion or $5 billion, whatever it is. Now that the networks are going to encourage them to play, but the money's not really going to be different. And everybody loves this scheduling philosophy. 3 non-conference games, 1 real game, 1 so-so game, and 1 rum-dum. By the way, the game next week here in Stillwater is a rum-dum. Arkansas Pine Bluff. Was anybody here for was it the 2012 game against Savannah State? Remember that? It was 84-0. It literally was 84-0. So UAPB is maybe 1 step above that, but maybe not. Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's just bad business, but they can get away with it. So I'm pessimistic about Bedlam. I don't think it's going to go on in football. Kenny could tell us more about the non-football stuff, but I think we'll probably have Bedlam in most sports, but it's going to be tough to get it to work in football. You realize, well, some of you guys are as old as I am. It wasn't always this way. Teams didn't used to schedule automatic victories. OU fired Gary Gibbs in 1994. You know what his non-conference schedule was in 1994? OU played 4 teams. Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and Syracuse, back when they were really good with Donovan McNabb and those guys. That was their non-conference schedule. 4 teams better than Nebraska is this year, better than Arizona State is this year. Coaches do a whole lot of talking about competing and all that kind of stuff, but on some levels, they don't really want to do it. They want 2 scrimmages and then start playing. So it's a sad commentary on college football.
I'm always interested to hear a top OSU memory. Could be coach, team, story, whatever just kind of comes to mind. You're a great storyteller and tell a lot of good stories about OSU.
I got one. I got 2 or 3. Here's one. I was 12 years old, and I woke up on a Saturday, and we lived in Norman, and my dad said, "Why don't we go to Stillwater? Nebraska's playing. Let's go watch Nebraska OSU." I said, "Great." So we came up here. OSU did not beat Nebraska between 1961 and 2002. 41 years. They did not win. But in 1973, they were scaring Nebraska, scaring the crap out of Nebraska. 17-17. Nebraska's driving the ball at the end of the game. They get to the goal line. It's 4th and 1 in the last seconds, like 30 seconds left in the game. Nebraska had this rookie coach. He decides not to kick a field goal. He goes for it on 4th and 1. OSU stuffs him. Cowboys get the tie. 17-17. Only time between 61 and 2002 that Nebraska failed to beat OSU. And I walked away at 12 years old saying, you know what? That new Nebraska coach has no chance of making it. His name was Tom Osborne. So I remember we sat at the old Lewis Field. We sat on that south end on the west end. And that's where the goal line was. We got to be right in front of the goal line. Here's another one. 1993, December of 93. That would have been Big Country's junior year. I was the OSU basketball beat writer. And OSU played Arizona in Phoenix, one of those December special games. And so I went out there, covered the game, and it was early enough that I could get a flight home that night on Southwest. And so like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, I'm at the Phoenix airport. I get on the plane, and there's the Cowboy basketball team. They were flying, it's back when they flew commercial, and they all were sitting in the back, and I ended up on the row right in front of Eddie. And literally for 2 hours on the way home, I just was turned around, and he was just telling me old stories. And of course, I'm like everybody else in Payne County and most of the other 76 counties in Oklahoma. I loved Eddie Sutton. And I look back on that and think, you know, I like Boynton, I like Moser, I liked Kruger. Everybody loves Lon Kruger. I'm one of the few guys that liked Travis Ford. But that night getting to spend 2 hours just sitting and listening to Eddie tell basketball stories was a really cool experience. So that was pretty neat. Anything else?
Have you had time to spend time with the new Big 12 guy, Brett?
I got to spend about 30 seconds with him. Although I got to say, this is cool. Being interviewed, getting asked a question by somebody that I ask questions of is a different experience. You had the shot to really ask me something a lot tougher than that, Kenny. You could have hit me with something tough. Brett Yormark, I got to spend about 30 seconds with him in Arlington. He is an interesting guy. He said, "What can you tell me?" I said, "What?" He said, "You've been around a long time. What do you know? What's your take?" And I said, "Take a pass on Colorado." That's what I told him. But he is a go-getter, man. And what I like about him is he doesn't pull any punches. I mean, all these conference commissioners, they're all, you know, it's a pirate ship of an environment. I mean, it's really people trying to stab each other in the back. But when they get in front of the microphones, everybody's nice and pleasant. Oh, you know, we love each other. Brett Yormark basically said, you know what, Pac-12, we're coming after you. And, you know, the Pac-12 got all hot and bothered about it. But yesterday in Cincinnati, he's still saying, you know what, Pac-12, we're coming after you. I don't know if he's going to get them. I don't know. But he's not pulling any punches. He's letting people know this is what we're doing. He apparently is the ultimate wheeler dealer, a deal maker. And here's what's cool about it. These media days where you meet to promote football, the commissioners of all these leagues always speak before, and they get up and talk about how great everything was and the successful year and the academic prowess and the financial, all that. And Brett Yormark got up there and said, you know what? I was really hired for one thing. I was hired to produce a really good television contract for this conference, which is 100% the truth and 0% of what anybody ever says. So he seems like a straight shooter. Gundy just loves him. Gundy says that Schrum is the one that got him hired. I don't know if that's true. My source on that is Gundy, and that's as far as I can take you. But that's what he says, and he's He comes from New Jersey. He helped get the Nets, the new arena in Brooklyn. That was his deal, putting the Barclays Center together in Brooklyn, which is not easy. Let me think real fast. In basketball and football and hockey, in 50 years, probably, maybe longer. They got renovated Yankee Stadium, and the Mets have their new stadium. So baseball's got it done. Madison Square Garden, just same place they've always been. Football teams left long ago to New Jersey, and when they built a new one, they built it in New Jersey. So he reversed the trend, got a new arena in Brooklyn. And it can't be easy. So he's got something to him. I don't know what, but I like him. I loved Bob Bowlesby. I thought he did a great job. He kept the league together when it could have splintered, and he's really smart. I don't know how much time you got to spend around Bob Bowlesby, but I learned all kinds of things unrelated to. I'd say that 10% of my knowledge about what COVID really is and what it's going to be, I learned from Bob Bowlesby. He told me 3 months after the pandemic started. He said, this is a bad thing. We got to write it out. And he said, and eventually it's just going to stay with us and we're going to have to learn to live with it. And what are we doing right now? It's still with us and we're learning to live with it. So what he said about COVID was right on point. So he was a sharp guy, smart guy. But your mark seems to be what we need in the Big 12 at this point in time.
He came and spoke to all the coaches, and I thought it was a really cool experience that never been a part of that, where the commissioner came in and sat down at Karsten Creek and we had lunch and we introduced ourselves, families, our road to where we are now. And the guy is bullish and he's hip. Our conference is very stale. It's very old. It's tired. And this guy is like, for recruiting and young kids, making this a really cool place. This guy's all in.
Yeah.
I like him. He's going to rub some people wrong. He's going to make you mad if you like the traditional things, most likely. The funniest thing he told us, and I'll stop because your deal. He said, I was doing my press conference, his first one, and he's this guy that came from Rock Nation, right? Is it Rock
Jay-Z?
Jay-Z. I mean, it's hip, it's music, it's all this stuff. And during his first press conference, he had his phone in his jacket pocket, and it just kept buzzing and buzzing. I mean, hundreds of texts, and it was all his Rock Nation guys texting him as he's saying how we're going to do this. We're going to do this. He goes, I don't know how you're going to do any of this when you have Oberto beef jerky behind your back as your sponsor for the conference. And he just said, Oberto's out, and it's now out. Like, it's not the main title sponsor. And it's reality.
Yeah.
It's reality. And you better infuse music and youth into this. And that's what he's going to do. And it's cool. So,
yeah, he's Jay-Z and the Big 12 are not two things you think of together when you think of one or the other. Well, that's good. Hey, thanks for having me.